how can we watch movies on iPhone without downloading it? And we are still moving data around in enterprises to be able to produce a report. Like, why can't we just stream the data where it sits, but personalized? Just the way a movie is for a human being, why can't we serve enterprise information? Like 9 months into it, my head of technology said, we're going to throw all of this away. Now I know exactly what we want to build. And part of me is like, wow. Because it was 9 months of investment. But I had to, not that we questioned, oh, should we stop? But those were the moments of like really hard test. Definitely don't wait for the right moment. The right moment will I think some other thing will take over the right moment. So that's not the consideration. Then we convert the technical data into what we call business data. So we translate technical terms into business language as the data comes in, and we give it a business shape. So we may have client data coming from 5 systems, but we'll create a consolidated view of that client data in Clarista real time. And then we use that consolidated view to talk to AI.
Welcome to 101 Talks with Sachin Menon, a podcast where we explore the minds of builders, founders, and thinkers shaping the future. Today's conversation is with Suvrat Bansal, the founder and CEO of Clarista, a company working at the intersection of AI, finance, and secure data intelligence. Now, most of us interact with AI in a very simple way. We open a tool like ChatGPT, type a question, and expect an answer. But what happens when the stakes are much higher? What happens when the AI is being used by wealth managers, financial institutions, and analysts handling extremely sensitive financial data? You can't simply upload confidential information into a model. And that is exactly the problem Surat and his team set out to solve. Hi, Surat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sachin. Thanks for having me.
I would love to start from the beginning. If you had to describe your journey so far from where everything started to building Clarista today, what would that story look like?
Yeah, Sachin. So it's very connected, actually. There are a lot of things which you just look back and say how it happened, it happens, right? So my first job, I joined Citigroup in my first job, and my first job was work on databases for banks, right? They used to build independent software for retail banks, and they hired me in the data team. That was my start of the journey. And very quickly, I realized I had a knack for it, right? Like I had this ability to mentally connect information, which is exactly what the purpose of databases are. Like you store the information, but finally you need to connect all that information for any purpose, right? Whether it's application or reports, etc. And 1 year into that, I got an opportunity to come to US, work for the Wall Street. I did that and initially worked on building those sophisticated, large scale database systems for banks like Morgan Stanley, who didn't have any internal database system, right? People were using just handful of systems and Excel to do kind of a lot of work, whether it's financial control or investment banking deals. And we remember during my time of 10 years there, I saw the emergence of 30 plus systems because it was the tech boom and people were really interested in technology. And then because I was the first hire to focus on data, I just grew with it. I was managing global teams, and very quickly I realized that that was great, right, to understand the technology, but unless you also understand how people use it, how they make decisions, right, the picture remains incomplete. So I decided to pursue my MBA, went to Columbia Business School. And then when I came back, I was again very fortunate because my management team was very gracious. They're like, tell us what you want to do, right? Like, so you already have done very well on the technology side, what you want to do. And through that, I was able to then focus on data reporting directly to the CEOs, thinking about data as an asset, as a firm asset, which not only brings cost optimization and risk management, but also assists the front lines in generating insights. So I think everything just kept connecting for me, right? Like started with the ground up build to from engineering education to expertise in data platforms to understanding the business areas. And then I got very fortunate because I worked for every business area, financial services, starting with investment banking, private equity, real estate, asset management, hedge funds, fund of funds. Every vertical you can think about, I got the opportunity to really focus on it, both as a data leader, but also as a transformation agent. Those roles materialized for me to become the chief data officer, chief analytics officer. I was the chief data officer for UBS prior to launching Clarista. The launch of Clarista also happened very naturally while my previous boss, the COO, was thinking about, look, we have done such great work on data for the organization. What will it look like if we were to take something like that outside to the market? It was actually, he thought of it, and then, he seeded this insect and idea of like entrepreneurship in me to say, look, what will it look like? And there were some changes, and he ended up leaving. And I think after he left, I'm like, okay, that seed was already there. And I decided to leave UBS to form this company, Clarista. And the thesis of it was all about clarity, right? I mean, what are we all seeking when we are asking a question in ChatGPT or doing a Google search? Is give me a quick, clear answer, right? And to your point, and you summarized it beautifully well, financial data is so complex. There are things which people miss out on. We'll talk more about it on why that simple answer in ChatGPT looks really great, but how hard it is to get that answer in financial services.
Yes, yes. So I will be coming to that shortly. But
Sure.
I'm curious about something deeper. Every founder has a moment where something clicks,
Yeah.
like, say, a frustration, a gap, realization that something in the world just isn't working the way it should. What
Yeah.
was that moment for you?
Yeah, so it's a funny one. Actually, I used to commute to my office, and one given day I was trying to, like, for the first time on my iPhone, I tried to click on Netflix to watch a movie. And if you guys remember, right, streaming happened like from discs to streaming, and it used to like download certain portions, and then you could just stream on iPhone when 5G networks launched. So as I started to stream the movie, it occurred to me, like, how can we watch movies on iPhone without downloading it? And we are still moving data around in enterprises to be able to produce a report. Like, why can't we just stream the data where it sits, but personalized? Not streaming systems like system to system communication, but system to human communication. Just the way a movie is for a human being, why can't we serve enterprise information like that? Was the germination. Like, that's what created the moment to say, what if we build a Netflix of enterprise data? Now it sounds very silly, but when you live and breathe enterprise data, you start connecting your personal experiences with your work experiences. That's what they do, right? But it was so distant, right, Sachin? I entered that glass door of my office and I was living in a very different world. Lot of process, lot of lead time to ask for information. Someone will gather it, produce it, month will pass. And here I am watching a movie. So there was clearly something missing in terms of the technology is there. Otherwise, how is Netflix doing it? And it's much more complex. You're sending videos. I only have to send data packets, right? So I think that's what actually created the idea that there has to be some possibility there.
So most people today interact with AI in a very simple way, but Clarista, as you said, is doing something fundamentally different. So for someone listening who may not come from finance or AI, can
Yeah.
you explain in plain language what actually happens when a wealth manager asks Clarista a question? What's actually happening under the hood?
Yes. So first, let's break down what ChatGPT is doing. So ChatGPT is consistently gathering lot of information from a lot of public sources and then training its model continuously, right? So they update the models because it takes so long to update the model and it's so expensive, right? Every run of that model may cost $1 million. I don't know, like it's millions of dollars is what we know, right? No one discloses the actual number, but it's expensive. And so they run it at a certain frequency and update the model. So it's not going to give you the latest answer. It's going to do web search for latest answers. And then anything which the model is trained on is going to give the answer based on the date on which the model was trained. Now, when you're living in finance, everything needs to be now. A transaction got executed, the price has moved, the valuation has changed, the risk profile has changed. Every second, things are changing in the markets. So if I ask a question and I give you an answer based on 3 months old model trained data, even a month old model trained data, you will basically never use the system. Okay.
Yeah.
So people live in very real time and very accurate world in finance because accuracy is what drives this. Now, the second part is it's easier. Well, I shouldn't say easier, but it's when it comes to text data, there are a lot of things you can do with text data. These are proven methods, but a lot of the finance data is sitting in systems in different formats. There are still mainframes running. Then there are old relation systems running, Sybase and Oracles. And then there are cloud systems now. There are vendors like Salesforce, Workday. Workflow has been optimized around a system in finance. In the smallest division in my previous bank, we had 400 systems. Smallest division. In the largest division, you can imagine there can be 2,500 systems. Now, when you're trying to construct an answer which needs to be real time, that real time sits in each system. So unless I can figure out which system to go to based on the question, so first I need to translate the question into series of machine instructions. Then I have to identify the right sources for those instructions to be sent. Then I need to fetch the answer based on the technology of that system. And then I need to combine those responses to give you an answer. That is a very, very different technology from how we use ChatGPT. The, the thing is, the experience needs to be same, right? You and I both would like to ask those questions in our corporate environment in the same way we ask questions to ChatGPT, but the technology and the complexity is very different. And the second part, which you also a little bit hinted on, is we can get a little bit here and there with ChatGPT because we kind of feel like it's a lot of it is public knowledge, but you can't get here and there with finance. It needs to be exactly accurate, right? There needs
Yes.
to be one number. It can't be a different number for different answers for different people. It needs to be the same number. And it only needs to be answered for someone who should have access to it. Because, and to your point, in finance, there's a lot of proprietary data. If a banking team is working on a deal, only that banking team should have access to that deal. But deal coverage changes. Tomorrow, I may add a member from another team to say, hey, look, I need your help. I'm going to add you to this deal. And as soon as I add that member, that person should have access to all the information on that deal. So the entitlements and the access of banking changes as frequently as the data itself, depending on the need. So nothing is fixed in the banking world. Nothing is like, hey, static information which you can use 3 months old, train the model. So I think it's just you have to approach it with the finance industry in mind, not just what you're seeing in ChatGPT.
And taking from the thread what you said, one thing I found fascinating while researching your work is that AI doesn't copy the data; it goes to the data. Is what Clarista is doing. For someone
Yes.
outside finance, that might sound very subtle, but it's
Yes.
actually a massive difference. Why is it so important?
Yes. So this was a principle I had set for our company when I left, that building upon that AI, like Netflix theme, to be honest, Sachin, I am not downloading a movie on my iPhone today to watch it, right? I mean, that's just not how we live. So my point was, if we're going to truly realize the vision based on the epiphany of Netflix experience, then it needs to be the Netflix experience. It needs to be pull it from wherever it is and never store it. Now, beyond the experience, because by not storing it, you can really ensure real time, right? Because otherwise you'll always be syncing it, copying it, then putting it in front of someone. The other part was clients are getting increasingly concerned about the data sovereignty. What is data sovereignty, right? Yes, you own your data, but if you're using 10 systems to manage your business processes, your risk of that data leakage now sits in those 10 systems. You, as the company, own the data, but you have, in a way, outsourced that data to 10 different systems. The second bet we had made was, if the world really works out the way we see it, clients in the future can own all their data and force the systems to work with their data, right? Like, okay, put some highly complex things aside, like banking transactions, and we get that. Like, it needs to be immediately reflected. But a lot of things we do, think about a CRM system, think about a workflow. These are things created around business processes. So we kind of felt that if the networks have become that strong that you can kind of get real-time responses on movies, then you should be able to just store the data at the client server and then use softwares to tap into it. That's how we designed Clarista, for security as well as that experience. Turns out that even after all this kind of, we have been in the market for some time, we are not seeing that companies, like, because we know how hard it is. It took us 2.5 years to really get that product out because it is tough to balance that experience with the security and the zero data footprint. But that's really was a part of the principle. It was not like, let's just build something. It was really like, either we build something like this or we don't build it.
Another thing that stood out to me about Clarista is Clarista holds a patent on this technology. These students think patents are something only large corporations pursue, but you decided to do this as a startup. Why?
So, look, first of all, I self funded my company. So I was, anyway, like, I considered the patent as a hedge of my own capital, because you're doing so many demos once you get out in the market, you're publishing white papers, like, I always thought that there are very smart people in the world. And once they fully understand how Clarista works and how it connects, frankly, patents are going to disclose that anyway. But at least patent give us the protection that we were the one who came up with this whole technology first and put it in the market. So the three layers which our patent really is unique about is one, that universal connectivity layer. Secondly, that's just a technology. There are a lot of technologies which can pull data real time. Then we convert the technical data into what we call business data. So we translate technical terms into business language as the data comes in, and we give it a business shape. So we may have client data coming from 5 systems, but we'll create a consolidated view of that client data in Clarista real time. And then we use that consolidated view to talk to AI. So that three layers is kind of the Clarista unique proposition. And because we can connect to AI, we can also connect to third-party systems. We can connect to dashboards and reports. So we now have created a very universal form factor through that middle layer to produce custom documents, to produce podcasts, to give real-time answers, to pass that to third-party systems so that everyone can live in a trusted, unified, and secured view of information, irrespective of where it's sitting. And that's how our clients use it. Initially, they want to solve certain problems, they'll bring Clarista in. Then they start using Clarista as that middleware to now use it for other systems as well, so that everyone can benefit from it at the organization.
And let's shift gears and talk about the reality of building companies. Behind every startup story are moments that appear in the press releases. What has been the single hardest touch in this journey? The moment where you genuinely questioned whether to keep going, which is not found in any press releases.
Yeah. Look, when you, as an entrepreneur, frankly, there's not one moment, there are many moments where you think, like, should you keep going? So, as I said, the vision was there, the direction was there. And I was fortunate enough, Sachin, to play some very senior roles. And I had started to save with this vision that, look, at some point I'll go out and build something like this. So it was my own capital. When you deploy your own capital, you have to, as a founder, unless I'm not a self coder, right? I'm not, as one of those founders, which was unique about me. I left hands-on coding in many different ways, 15, 16 years back. Once I moved to the business, started helping these business leaders really manage everything. So I knew enough, but not like caught up in everything, cloud and multi-cloud. And so I knew I had to form a team, right? And one thing I know from my history is I've always been fortunate about attracting good people. Good is very important to me. Ethical, morally good people. Then they can learn. And I have a style where I give a lot of space for people to come and learn and experiment and do things. And I've been always very fortunate about, just good people aligning. And that's what happened here also. I ended up being very lucky with some really good and talented people coming and joining the team who took the technology forward. But as they are building it, remember, I'm giving them space of experimentation. 9 months into it, my head of technology said, we're going to throw all of this away. And now I know exactly what we want to build. And part of me is like, wow. Because it was 9 months of investment. But I had to, not that we questioned, oh, should we stop? But those were the moments of like really hard test. Do you want to keep going to realize your vision? But once you really believe in people and you give them a space, you have to then really believe in them. Like you can't then get all shaken up by these moments. So I think I would say in those moments is more about remembering why you started something, what you know, what you don't know. I knew that I'll need good technologies. That means I'll have to give them that space and capital to build something. So as I was playing more of an investor and a guide role in that, because I had the vision, I knew what needs to happen. So I had to take those moments as like, yeah, it must be the right call for them to make. And because they are morally and ethically good people, they will not make it lightly, right? So I think it's those moments which shape up the future of the firm, which is, to be honest, is one of the reason Clarista, very little I had to go back and ever think about is technology debt. Because at the right moment, very quickly, like we realized that don't live with something which is not aligned with your future. Better to like not do it and move away from it now versus keeping it somehow going and then regretting it 5 years from now.
That's a wonderful thought and a good advice. So,
Sure.
before we wrap up, I want to end with something for students and aspiring founders watching this. Where right now, someone watching this episode has an idea in their mind, but they're hesitating, they're unsure, they're waiting for the right moment. what would you say to that person?
Yeah, definitely don't wait for the right moment. The right moment will, like, I think some other thing will take over the right moment. So that's not the consideration, but definitely think about, one, what are you going to bring to the table? So I brought 25 years of doing what I am doing now, right? I mean, I've been a client of these technologies. I knew exactly the pain points. I knew all that. And then I brought capital to deploy. And then I brought a lot of patience to give people the
Yeah,
space, right? To build it. So
yeah,
you have to decide what you're going to bring to the table and then find people. Look, at my level, when I left, my colleagues were very senior level MDs, so it was hard for me to find a co-founder. So if you're young, remember, like, don't carry this burden alone. Find a co-founder, find two co-founders. And if you have that mindset, like, start meeting people with that mindset. Like, look, luckily you may come across someone who's aligned, but I would say that work hard on finding those people if you have an idea, right? People also hesitate, oh, I don't want to discuss my idea too openly. Look, building firms, I can tell you, is incredibly hard. Building technology is incredibly hard. We used to worry about whom should we send our detailed architecture diagrams. Today, we are like, share it with anyone. We know what it takes to build it. And I couldn't build it when I was in a bank, right? I knew, it was very hard. So I know it's very hard. Just, yeah, be selective about the ideas, but like start discussing and identifying people you want to share that journey with and bring critical capabilities together in the form of capital. Where will it come from? Who will put in it? Who's going to lead the technology? Who's going to lead the business development? Who's going to lead the product development? You don't have to have everything. You will figure things out along the way, but anything you don't have, I can tell you, is going to be hard later on to hire for. So to the extent you can bring the right skills and right personalities and also the ability to take risk at the same way. So, there are co-founders who sometimes one is take very risk taking, one is very risk averse, doesn't work there, so I just find that commonality and go for it,
nice.
man. I met this really young founder yesterday, again from Indian background. Three of us, three companies were invited to pitch at a very, very like one of the top two insurance companies. We were part of it, and he was there. I was so impressed by him. He has two co-founders. He has another co-founder from his college, and then they found a technical, very senior co-founder, very experienced co-founder from Silicon Valley. So they didn't even hesitate as two young co-founders to bring someone very senior. That means they would have given him potentially more equity than each of them own, right? And that's what I'm telling you. Like, that is more important. Forming the right team and leadership is more important than worrying about anything else. And especially if it's your first one, what do you have to lose? If you walk away with 10-20% finally after everything is done, and you're able to sell that, or if you never sell it and you get so lucky that you become the Airbnbs and the Facebooks of the world, like, what do you have to lose? So do it now. Do it. If you feel like you have an idea, pursue it.
Yeah, nice. So this has been a fantastic conversation. What stood out to me is just not the technology behind Clarista, but the deeper theme of conversation building responsible AI, especially in
Absolutely.
industries where trust and data security matter deeply. Thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing.
Absolutely, Sachin. No, really appreciate you reaching out and organizing this. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey, your insights, and the lessons from building something ambitious.
Thank you. Bye bye.
You are watching 101 Talks with Sachin Menon, where we break in big complex ideas into simple, grounded conversations. Thank you. See you in the next episode.